AI models have relied heavily on open internet data for years. So how real is this data scarcity problem today?
A lot of companies right now are accessing data from platforms like Twitter, Reddit, etc. Perceptron is a distributed intelligence network. We turn user-contributed bandwidth, which is effectively your internet, into real-time data products for enterprise customers. It gives us an unrivaled ability to gather data that can become high-value intelligence products.
How does it prevent low quality or duplicated data or even manipulated data?
That's a traditional way in which many data centers and data companies will work, is that they'll gather from one location or maybe 2 or 3 locations at once. We have the ability to gather from hundreds of thousands of different locations.
How do you actually ensure that the data is non-biased?
That's a good question.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lorena Nessi from CCN, and today I'm joined by Peter Anthony, co-founder of Perceptron Network. We will discuss one of the most pressing challenges in AI today, access to high-quality training data. Hello, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to CCN.
Hi there. Thanks very much for having me. Very excited to talk about Perceptron and the world of AI and data.
Absolutely, definitely one of the most interesting, exciting, wonderful topics of our times, right? So I can't wait. I can't wait to see what Perceptron does and your views on AI. So AI models have relied heavily on open internet data for years, but there is this growing argument that this source is shrinking as platforms restrict access and legal pressures also increases. So how real is this data scarcity problem today? And which types of data are becoming, let's say, unusable or restricted?
I think sort of the main issue right now in terms of data scarcity, as you've already pointed out, a lot of companies right now are accessing data from platforms like Twitter, Reddit, etc. And they're doing it under very expensive kind of data deals. Now, there's a problem in that a lot of new companies out there developing in the world of AI don't have massive budgets to be spending $60 to $80 million per year on data from somewhere like Twitter or Reddit, which is roughly what OpenAI has been spending. And that kind of creates a big problem in that it's very centralized, and it means that a number of big players have the ability to continue developing, but it's very difficult for new language models and new AI products to enter into the market. Now, that's one side of looking at it in terms of it being very constrained data, but it's also when data is only coming through one specific avenue. So only coming from one vantage point. So if you're, trying to access data right now, not sure where you're based right now, but you're looking at your computer, and if you go and search on Amazon or you'll go and search for certain crypto prices or whatever it might be, there's a very good chance that what you see from your vantage point is different from what I see from my vantage point, and is different from what is seen globally across lots of different vantage points, which creates its own kind of problems as well when it comes to data.
Brilliant. So what does Perceptron do in this regard, in simple terms?
So Perceptron is a distributed intelligence network. Effectively, our motto is 1,000 eyes, one vision. Now, we turn user-contributed bandwidth, which is effectively your internet, into real-time data products for enterprise customers. So we take excess bandwidth that you are not using at any given time, and we use it to gather a vantage point on the internet. Now, as I've already mentioned, the internet varies no matter where you're looking at it. But by creating thousands of different vantage points and feeding all of that information simultaneously in real time from everywhere all at once, it gives us an unrivaled ability to gather data that can become high-value intelligence products for customers across finance, AI, enterprise analytics, and effectively then provides value back to the users, such as yourself or myself, who are contributing through the node network.
Amazing. And how does Perceptron, if it is collecting such diverse amounts of data, how does it prevent low quality or duplicated data or even manipulated data from entering the pipeline at scale?
So in the same way that when you're looking at information right now, there's no guarantee that the information that you see, let's say for the oil price right now, everyone's talking about the oil price because of obviously what's going on in the Middle East. There's no guarantee that, by seeing the oil price from your location, that I'm going to see the real pricing of whatever that might be. But that's a traditional way in which many data centers and data companies will work, is that they'll gather from one location or maybe 2 or 3 locations at once. We have the ability to gather from hundreds of thousands of different locations. And by doing that, we can kind of aggregate that information. And obviously that then starts to kind of cancel out bad actors, etc., and any kind of manipulated information within those data sets.
Can you go a little bit further into how humans play a significant role in here?
Humans themselves, when it comes to... Okay, so let me just broaden out a little bit more about what we are doing with Perceptron. Now, by contributing and running a node. Now, a node is effectively a piece of software that's either, at the moment, a phone extension, a phone application or a node extension. Now, this is one way in which you can contribute to the Perceptron network. We're in the process right now of building a data questing platform. There's a lot of data information and data products out there that need to have human input. So if we go and gather tons and tons of different pieces of data, there's a good chance that lots of it needs to be annotated, that lots of the information is perhaps missing, or we need data sets that aren't available right now or freely available right now. That means that we can then go out to our broader network and we can say, hey, we need to have people from a certain part of sub-Saharan Africa with a rare language speak about different things or translate documents into their local language, whatever it might be. We need to have people in Brazil go and find us pictures of local restaurants and other information that can feed back into the network. We need to have people in other parts of the world to go and gather the ambient background sound to feed into information. This can all effectively build a visual data picture in real time and really requires to have a decentralized network to do it. Now, there are right now a lot of data sets that are difficult to fill and not being able to fill. I'll just give you a very simple example. There's been a data set for the last 6 months hasn't been filled, and it's a data set of 1,000 images of women without any makeup on. Now, I can go to my network that obviously has lots of men, lots of women, and say, I need to have pictures of women without makeup on. You can contribute as a woman, say, I want to put my image in, and you can earn a reward for that. That's just a very simple example of how we can kind of start to build out lots of data sets that are missing and enrich data sets that are already existing by offering annotation tasks, etc.
Tell us how does your product compare to other products, and what do you do actually with the data that you collect?
Good question. So initially, when we kind of launched Perceptron as a platform, we were using our decentralized node network to gather parcels of data. So I like to think of the analogy like ants going out and gathering grains of sugar and turning it into a pile of sugar, right? So it's gathering small data sets, tiny data parcels, and turning it into a meaningful data set. Now, each individual node can gather around 100 megabytes of data per day. Now, it doesn't gather your data. It's very important that I talk about that, but it's identifying, or it's viewing publicly available information from your vantage point. So if you can go and look at your Amazon right now, or your Netflix, whatever it is, it can go and do that. Now, we initially got into selling data sets to language models, predominantly in the kind of text to image, text to video type things, if you think about Mid-Journey, etc. But we were working with a company called Evelyn AI and contributing hundreds of thousands of images so that they could use these images to build into their systems. Now, there are other companies within the crypto space that are already doing this. However, what we think is probably the most valuable with such a large node network is to go down the kind of active business intelligence route. Now, if you are, and for that, the clients would be quant traders, hedge funds, etc. In crypto, for example, the sentiment is incredibly important. Now, right now, the market's pretty quiet. It's not doing much. But as soon as the market starts to pick up again, you may notice, if you're paying attention to Twitter and whatever, I should call it X, it's not Twitter anymore, right? You'll probably notice people talking about certain altcoins, certain meme coins. All of a sudden, you go and check the charts. It's already too late. That coin's already gone up 5x, 10x, whatever else. And probably the reason behind that is people who have machinery and whatever who can access this information are seeing those moves far before you ever even get a hint of it happening. Now, by having the ability to look through thousands of different eyes at once, you can gather data from Telegram groups, you can gather data from Discords, you can gather data from pricing, you can, like Binance, OKX, whatever it might be. You can feed all of this information into a platform that gives you an idea that there's been a sentiment shift all of a sudden that's happened around a specific coin. It's basically allowing you to be the trader that you wish you could be, who can see everything happening all at once, and all of that information is fed to you far faster and far more accurately than any centralized system has access to right now. I think that's one very key thing. And I believe that the clients for that are into the kind of hedge funds, etc. But I do also think that it's a very useful piece of information. I do also think that it's a very useful piece of technology that could be utilized by exchanges and other AI analytics for crypto investments.
Yeah, that is super, super important. But actually, that also raises concerns of privacy, legal compliance, following strict regulations. So how do you address that? Are you collecting? I mean, it seems that the data you're collecting is personal. Do you collect residential IPs, things like that? And how do you negotiate that?
Good question. Okay, so first of all, no, we don't use private personalized data. We only access effectively like I said before, the web pages and things that you are able to see. However, into the future, there is the ability for you to give access to your Telegram, for you to give access to whatever particular platform that you're looking at. We also have the ability to deploy bots into different groups across particular industries, whether that be Forex traders, whether that be stock traders, crypto groups, etc. If you are in any group as we speak right now that talks about altcoins or whatever it might be, I guarantee that probably within that group, there might be a bot that's, just trying to post messages or whatever. You can have bots that are adding value and contributing information, but also at the same time, gathering that information, feeding that information back into a centralized system. I know as someone who runs, groups for my YouTube channel, there's always going to be bots in there, whether I can control it or not. Well, I can't control it effectively, right? So there's always going to be bots in there.
Amazing. Okay, so you have gone through the rewards and incentives, and probably we'll go more into the use of blockchain and maybe some other options or your communication systems. But what about how do you actually ensure that the data is non-biased?
Got you. Okay, so this is a very interesting topic, and it's a very, very important one, because you may at times have asked ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is that you used, maybe a slightly controversial question. Now, I won't obviously bring these up for the sake of political correctness, whatever it might be, but you sometimes will see Claude or whatever it is kicking back at you and saying, so what if that's the case? You shouldn't be asking things like that. Now, there's a very interesting TV show that my one of the guys I work with for my YouTube channel put me onto, and it's a show on Netflix in India, and it's talking about people who are programming AI large language models. Now, in the show, I can't remember specifically, but it was talking about an insect, and it was talking about this insect being a bad insect. It was a negative insect. You don't want to have the insect around. Let's just think of a cockroach or something like that. Now, the girl who's inputting the data is like, actually, I don't really mind cockroaches because of X, Y, Z. She goes and puts in the thing that she wants to say about it. Her supervisor comes over and says, "Hey, you're not allowed to write that because that's not the right information. She's like, yeah, but this is what I believe. This is what I think is the right information. And she says, well, you can't put this information in because the client who's paying us for this language model or whatever doesn't agree with whatever you're saying. Now, that's a very simplified example, but this is a real problem in this world that we're living in right now, where there's huge numbers of different agendas being pushed on us all the time from all sorts of different directions. It's very critical that you have some way of policing the data that is being fed into a system. Now, I would argue that this is one of the most beneficial aspects of having a decentralized network of contributors, because unlike a centralized organization, we don't have one individual who's basically policing every piece of information that's being put in. We have decentralized contributors from around the world who are inputting data. Now, obviously, there's lots of different pieces of information. That data can be pushed forward and aggregated into kind of one main understanding. And I believe that that's probably a better way to gather more truthful information than taking it from one source.
I think it absolutely is, and it will give you much more freedom to gather valuable information as a user. And as a user of the network, it would allow you to provide very interesting data as well. However, how do you avoid the bad use of dangerous data?
The use of dangerous data, could you give me an example?
For example, if you ask one of these AIs, ChatGPT or so, about how to create a bomb, there will be some logs, right? ChatGPT won't allow to give any information that really shows you, in theory, how to create it. I guess unless you have the right prompt to do so. I wouldn't go too much into detail, but how would you do it?
Okay, so effectively, we're gathering data sets and we're selling data sets on to, let's say, a ChatGPT or other companies out there. Now, effectively, what that company out there is asking for is we want to have a data set of worldwide events. What's going on right now in all sorts of different locations? Is there earthquakes? Is there votes going? Elections going on, what's happening in all those different areas of the world right now. There might be another thing that says, what's the sentiment like for crypto right now, and which individual altcoins might be about to pick up because they're suddenly being talked about in this group in Brazil and this group in France and wherever else. This live information is effectively provided to a client who's asking for that information. Now, the information obviously comes to us through the different node data pipelines, and then is aggregated into one location. That data is then kind of obviously checked and vetted before it's then sold on as a package to the client that wants access to it. So it's not necessarily feeding directly into large language models. It's more likely feeding into analytics tools for e-commerce or analytics tools for finance, etc. But it's, I think, an interesting question when we think about large language models and things like that.
So how do you really fight against the concentration of data? In a way, you're really helping users to provide data and decentralize these providers of data, which is amazing. But then how can you counterfight the concentration of data by the big AI providers? Is there a way to do so?
So I think what's very important, and when I talk about how I kind of got into Perceptron, I think it will explain this. Now, I have my background in crypto from the House of Crypto YouTube channel, right, which I did for 7 or 8 years. And throughout that time, I kind of spent a lot of time investing, but analyzing projects and trying to understand, what is kind of crypto? What's the concept behind blockchain? Why is it valuable? And then trying to identify projects that really utilize the technology. Now, most projects don't really, out there, they use decentralization as their kind of marketing piece, but often projects don't really need to have decentralization to be able to achieve what they're doing, right? They just, maybe it's a good way to kind of make money, whatever it is. There are, however, kind of areas of crypto where decentralization is like a really core piece that really does benefit the end customer and the end product going to that customer. When it comes to AI, I believe that decentralization is one of the most core pieces that moves us towards that point. One, because it gives us the ability to gather data from many different vantage points at once, which means that we counteract against the things we've been talking about already, like the narrow aperture view of any particular data set. Also having the ability to have lots of different contributors at any given point, another very valuable point, so that we don't get kind of data sets skewed towards someone's particular mindset. But also, when you think about the potential for competition or competitors, it's very, very difficult for them to build not just the technology, it's actually the easy part. The difficult part for them to build is the network of users. Now, as someone who's spent 7 or 8 years building a YouTube channel that had 300,000 followers or so, I'm very, very much aware that it's incredibly difficult to build a network of users who trust you and are happy to kind of support and be a part of something. This is a kind of a key cutting edge that I think Perceptron has over pretty much any competitor out there. We've managed to build a network of 700,000 nodes with 100,000 active users, active daily users, should I say? That is the core feature of what we kind of sell as a product. If you look across any other company out there, they might be, gathering data, but they're not necessarily gathering data from such a vast network at any given point. I think this is probably the core piece that we're bringing. And while there are obviously some very big companies in the world, none of those companies are actively looking to kind of feed some of that value that they're earning from revenue back towards the contributors. You and I on a daily basis are contributing our data to Google and Facebook and Instagram, whatever it might be, but you never see a penny of that that you're getting back, right? Even though they're selling those data sets for billions of dollars.
So there is where actually the core the core idea of decentralization lies in your project, right?
Absolutely.
It reminds me to something I read the other day about, I don't want to name websites, but there is this ongoing idea of obviously AI dominating the world and then humans not having much to do in the world, just, probably just living somehow. And AI is actually being able to rent a human. I don't know if you've heard of that, but in a way, it's
I've actually seen a website like that.
Sorry?
I've seen a website called like Rent a Human or something like that. It's already a thing.
Yes, exactly. So in a way, these humans can, provide this workforce because we move around in the world. And on the other side, there are these projects or your project, right, in which you are providing the data that will keep AI going, right, and enriching it at the same time.
And I think just to touch on the point you've mentioned there, a lot of, we're already seeing the kind of the acceleration of AI. Over the last year, even things have started to get crazy, right? The introduction of Claude Bot, and within like a couple of weeks, that's been replaced by something else. And then this has come out in Claude Code. Everyone out there right now is building, or not everyone, but many people are out there right now building endless numbers of different cool products. And a lot of these products have the potential to start replacing workforces. Now, I don't know exactly how fast that kind of replacement of workforces is, but right now I'm in China, in Shenzhen, which is the sort of the Silicon Valley of China. Everywhere you walk around, there's cars or taxis driving themselves. There's machines cleaning the streets on their own. There's all these kind of robots and things doing things. Now that a year ago or 2 years ago, or whatever, was an individual who was employed and earning a wage. A lot of people, potentially as we move forward, may well start to look at losing jobs. And who are going to be the biggest winners? The large AI companies and the large companies, centralized companies taking all the value. what we're trying to do is to try and form a way that we can start contributing some of that value back towards the users that are, filtering some of that value back to some of the users that are contributing to those through sort of a universal basic income system. So you can run a node, you can contribute to data sets, and as we kind of move forward, there will be more and more tasks added to the questing system where an individual can participate, earn tokens, earn cash rewards, etc.
So do you see the provision of human data as one of the core tasks of humans in the future? And let's say in the next 5 years, 10 years, when will that happen?
I mean, human data is essential. If we think about I think one of the things that is maybe going to change a lot as we kind of going forward is robotics. Data itself and building out ChatGPT and Claude and all these different platforms right now. So obviously they require huge amounts of data, but I think it doesn't take long to really see that landscape outcompete itself. Where, if you can build an application right now on Claude that seems really cool, if you've been able to build it very quickly in a couple of days without having much of a background as a coder, then there's nothing stopping me going and copying your exact product and making it maybe a little bit bigger and a little bit better by tomorrow. And people will continue to do that. But I think one of the areas that I think we're going to see a really big evolution pushing from here is into robotics. And for robotics to really, truly kind of take hold and work, I think it needs to have a vast contribution from kind of human information. A lot of AI is on the computer, but robotics rely a lot more on being out in the open world. Who has access to the open world? Computers are not necessarily seeing things. Maybe they're looking through cameras, but they're not out on the ground actively kind of out there. And if we think about a robot or something having to go and deliver a package, it has to have very accurate kind of understanding of what's happening on the street at any given time. It has to understand how humans are moving and interacting. If you want to have a robot that's talking to people, it's very important that robot understands how people talk to each other in the part of the world where that robot's going to be working, because in different cultures and different places, we all talk to each other in slightly different ways. We all move around in different ways. I think humans are going to continue to be an essential part to feeding data into a system as we move towards a more kind of AI robotic shaped future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting, right? The ways in which humans actually can feed all kinds of data to improve these AI systems and robots one day. And then who knows what's going to happen, right? In the next, let's say, 15, 20 years, I guess the world is going to look very, very different.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about this earlier because it's the first time, I say it's the first time that we've ever had obviously there's been many revolutions before in lots of different capacities. But the last time we saw like major workforce changes was kind of around First World War period of time. Many people used to work on farms. Obviously, after the wars, you then started to see a lot more farm machinery come in, which replaced thousands and thousands of people, where one farmer can now farm an entire farm of like 20,000 hectares, whereas before that would have taken tens of thousands of people perhaps to go and look after the fields. We then saw the industrialization in factories and things like that. Many people got replaced, but the population of the world is now bigger. I think one of the biggest concerns that people have is, what is everybody going to do when AI takes over? It's like, well, first of all, I do think that, the population of the world seems to be slowly decreasing, at least in many countries. That's one factor. I think that maybe AI is going to come in and sort of enable places to kind of continue to operate at a high level, despite there being maybe a reduced population. But I think it just frees up humans to kind of go and explore more creativity. And as you already talked about earlier, AI then has the ability to bring humans in to go and work on other things. I think you can look at this in two ways. I think the best way to look at the future of AI is that it's going to be a very exciting opportunity to try new things and to discover new opportunities for yourself.
Well, it's really such a fascinating topic, right? I can't wait to see what happens in the future with projects like these, the use of data, the interactions with AI, and basically the human evolution through these changes. It's going to be really,
For
really
sure.
interesting.
Very exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for joining us at CCN. We'll keep in touch, and thanks again.
Cheers, Lorena. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.